I wanted to share a story with you that when I was a young man in the Air Force, I had friends that lived all across the country. In fact, one of them worked for Motivational Media, and that's how I got hooked up with the company. He was on tour, and he would travel the country in a van with all this equipment, and there were teams of 2 or 3 people in each van, and they'd spend a week in a city, and they'd hit several high schools and junior highs and Christian schools and secular schools and produce and show the run the show that was the that Motivational Media produced. And it was about a 45-minute long production, so it was a lot. It was very intensive when it came to producing all the slides and images. We had a full studio. We were in Burbank, and it really taught me a lot about media. But thinking back to that friend that I had, I actually had a audio set up at the Base Photo Lab where I would record songs and send music out, the latest music, and thoughts and viewpoints of what's going on in our lives, and reaching out to others, across the country. And that was before the internet and before Instagram, so it was on cassette tape, and that was. They said I had a voice for radio. Some of my coworkers,
Well,
which is
I mean, I've
funny.
heard the joke, or you have a face for radio.
I definitely have a face for radio, but anyway, that's when Good Morning Vietnam was out, and I would ham it up and play around on the cassette and add my own 2 cents and 2-bit comedy to it. But so this struck me that you were doing this, and this is the next generation and a next level of technology, and I'm proud of you for doing that. And I think this can really touch people's lives by looking into others. So that's inspiring to me.
Well, it's kind
So
of touching on some of what Dawn had mentioned in regards to allowing people to share and open up and highlight them.
mhm.
Making them feel important or like somebody cares.
And the biggest thing that Dawn always said is she feels that we aren't heard anymore. There's so many distractions in life that we're not heard.
It's always about
When
celebrities or the newest greatest thing. The average blue collar worker that runs a check stand or is putting the postage on a letter kind of is overlooked and not valued in today's society anymore because of the fast-paced environment that is thrown at us from day to day. I mean, it's all like that.
Well, but the biggest thing I see, trying to stay away from get off my lawn and being an old person with technology, is people are buried in their phones. They don't take the time to look up. And that's the one thing I so appreciate about Dawn. When she's out, she'll have people stop her and just start talking to her. And I know it's a spiritual thing because God is using her to reach out. But people are buried in their phones and they don't look up. They're looking at their phone. They walk through the store. They walk through life looking at a screen. And we miss the value of other people and the significance of the world around us,
The human connection.
and a human connection when we're tied up, on a screen, which is designed to divert our attention. It craves our attention. It's like a parasite to extent, which is ironic because that's probably where this is going to be viewed. Yes. Okay. So,
I would hope so.
well, yeah, somebody sees
Yeah.
that.
I mean, at the very least, we're gonna watch it.
I'm
Right?
sure that
We'll get a couple of views from ours.
well, I feel honored to be part of your premiere series, and certainly I'm glad that you got to interview Dawn because that was very touching to me. So
You had made a comment earlier too about Colombia. Didn't you do a mission trip there?
I did a missions trip to Colombia, and this was back in before Dawn and I were married, so that was what, 86 or 87. And I went with the Continental Singers, and I was still in the Air Force at the time. I took leave and went as a staff photographer for the Continental Singers, and we went down to South America, and we were 6 hours out of Bogota. The location that we were actually supposed to go to. We were supposed to help build houses. The town that we were headed to, and I don't remember the name of it, 2 days prior to us getting there, we had flown in, was overrun by rebels and burned to the ground. So we didn't go there. We ended up going to another location, and we shared the movie The Life of Jesus in the town square. And it was very rustic. All the roads were dirt roads. It was, like I said, 6 hours out of Bogota on a bus, and it was very colorful. Very colorful.
I remember as a kid you telling stories about opening the pantry, and there were like
yeah,
potatoes growing, and that was dinner.
Actually,
You guys threw them out.
we were trying to show our appreciation for them allowing us to stay in this missions house that we cleaned it up. We spent a couple hours, and it was a bunch of 20-something kids and boys and girls, and they were all part of the Continental Singers. And we cleaned the place up, and we spent time doing a really good job. And underneath the sink was a bag of potatoes that had liquefied. They had been there for so long that they were not solid anymore, and there was water dripping out of them. And one of the gals asked, "Well, what should I do with this?" And the chorus of American kids said, "Throw it out." So we threw it out, and sure enough, 2 or 3 hours later, the host comes in looking for those potatoes and asked what happened to them. And we said, oh, they had gone bad in American eyes, and we threw it out. And she's like, that was dinner. We all just held our breath because we were going to be staying there for a few days and couldn't wait to see what we had in store for other meals. But yeah, that was
monkey swinging in the trees.
Yeah, but that was something else. The neatest thing was to reach out to the people down there, and we actually had quite a few people ask to receive Christ. In South America, Catholicism is very predominant, and they don't really have a personal relationship. They're taught societally what God is, and they know of God and Jesus and Mary, and they pray to the saints, but there's not a personal connection with Christ. And that's the big difference between evangelicalism and Catholicism down there. We were actually working with a evangelical church there, and we got to go to the service on Sunday before we flew out from Bogota, and that was it was very deeply moving how passionate they were and how full of life it seemed, as opposed to some of the other things we'd experienced down there. The late 80s in Colombia was an interesting time. That's when all the cartels were really coming to power. There was literally a police officer with an M16 on every street corner. And the joke was they weren't loaded, but I don't think anybody wanted to find out. When I went down there, I stood out because I was an easy foot taller than the average population and bleach blonde hair that I had when I was a kid. I was very noticeable. I stuck out very much. It was brought to my attention that I stuck out. And it was a very different experience for me as a young American. I'd been to Jamaica, I'd been to Scotland, but I'd never been to South America, which was a totally different ballgame. So God taught me a lot on that trip, and I was blessed to have an option to take part in it. Actually, some of my photos got used in a Christian music video, Look What God Is Doing All Around the World. And the theme of the movie, the music video, was a slideshow, which fit very well into what we were doing. and I remember when I saw that, Don and I and a bunch of other young people were sitting around. We would watch videos on the weekends on the VHS tapes, and we were playing the video, and this video came on, and I'm like, "That was my picture!" So it was a neat experience.
That's cool.
It's something to see it, and it was used. And of course, I had no rights to it because I signed my rights away when I worked for the company as a staff photographer. But it was still neat to see my photos. So
That's awesome.
it was fun.